Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream of our virtual student town hall, where we will be focusing on fall 2021. I'm Melanie Rogers from Marketing Communications here at MRU, and I'll be moderating the live stream today. Because this is a live stream, only the presenters can be heard, seen, and recorded. We're recording this presentation so that we can post it on our website after the live stream is over. You'll be able to find the recording tomorrow if you visit mru.ca/COVID-19. Look for the section that says Students. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that Mount Royal University is located in the traditional territories of the Niitsitapi, Blackfoot, and the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which includes the Siksika, the Piikani, the Kainai, the Tsuut'ina, and the Yahe Nakota. The city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation. I'm here today with Vice-Provost and Associate Vice President Students, Phil Warsaba. This virtual town hall will have two parts. Phil will take us through a short presentation, and after that, there will be an opportunity for questions. To ask a question, please submit it using the Google form that you can find at mru.ca/questions. You can submit questions through this Google form at any point during the town hall. We'll answer as many questions as we can live, and we'll group together similar questions. So now I'll turn it over to Phil to get us started and to present a short slideshow.
Thank you, Melanie. Very much appreciated, and I appreciate the introduction as well. Welcome, MRU students. Thank you very much for attending the student Q&A session that we have planned today. We hope to give you some information about what learning is going to look like this coming fall. I'm going to spend a bit of time directing you to some support resources and to provide some guiding principles for our planning moving into the fall, and to give you a general sense of what we think the campus will look like this coming September. And of course, as Melanie noted, I hope to also answer a few of your common questions that we've been receiving over the past couple of weeks. So with that, we'll launch into the presentation itself. We are preparing to return to campus in the fall term based on what we currently know for Alberta vaccination rates for all members of the general public, and based on provincial planning documents and directions that we've been receiving over the past several months. We anticipate that the campus will feature primarily in-person learning both inside and outside of the classroom, and we are very excited for that return. As you know, for our continuing students, we have been conducting most of our learning in a alternate delivery format for the past 16 months or so, and there are many of us that are very excited to be back on campus again. We recognize that these changes to health and well-being guidelines around the province have been challenging to cope with, and have required the university to adjust its plans on a number of occasions. And we recognize that while we are anticipating a return to in-person learning, that there may be some students who have some difficulty attending campus in person in the fall, whether that's because of travel restrictions or documented medical health requirements or other reasons. And for that reason, we've decided that the university has decided that we will offer up to 20%, upwards of 20% of all of our classes online in the fall. And this is intended to give students as many options as possible moving into the fall term to be able to complete a full course load. As you know, over the past couple of weeks, you've received communications about our registration process, and slowly but surely, we have been updating the course schedule with the intended delivery method or delivery mode for each session of a course. So if you were to go into the registration system today and look at your schedule, you would be able to see which courses are intended to be delivered online and which courses are intended to be delivered in person. The main guiding principle that we would like to provide to students at this time is that if you are able to attend campus in person in the fall, please do your best to register in in-person sections of courses. And the intention there is to try and leave some room in online sections for those students who can't attend classes. Now, we recognize that won't be possible for everyone, depending on the modes of delivery associated with your core requirements, but we ask that you use that as a general guiding principle moving forward. Sorry, thank you. For registered students, we ask that you check your schedule now, now that all of the changes have been made over the past few weeks. If you are a registered student and you are registered in in-person classes that need to be online, or if you are in online classes and you need to be in person, please consider changing or adjusting your schedule. We have developed resources for students to be able to identify themselves if they are having difficulty making those changes themselves, or if they need advice from academic advisors or for others around campus. And you will have received an email on June 1st that contains all of that information and directs you to the appropriate resources and allows you to fill out a Google form to be able to get some additional assistance. If a course is full and you want to change to that section, please consider adding yourself to the wait list for the course. We will be monitoring the wait list closely and we'll be doing so all the way through August 16th with an intention of trying to adjust modes of delivery where we can and address student concerns. You could also make changes or add courses or remove courses up until September 17th, which is the drop add deadline at Mount Royal University. And you can do so without penalty up to that point. And we hope that beginning today with the information that you're receiving, that you will have ample time to be able to make the appropriate adjustments to your schedule. For unregistered students, my biggest piece of advice for you would be to register as soon as you possibly can. We do offer a wide variety of courses across all year levels and all disciplines, but the earlier you register, the easier it is to be able to find sections within your disciplines that meet your own curricular, co-curricular, and extracurricular requirements. You can do this by going to mru.ca/register. And once again, we would just emphasize that if you can attend in-person classes in the fall, please look for those in-person sessions and attempt to leave some of the online sections for those individuals who are unable to attend. If you haven't registered before at MRU and you have some difficulty navigating the system, we do have tutorials available to you online at mru.ca/online tutorials. The system is fairly intuitive, and once you get a hang of it, it is pretty easy to navigate, but that is a great resource to give you some extra information and get you on your way. There is a lot of support available to MRU students across the campus, whether in alternate format delivery or in person. And nothing has changed throughout the pandemic in this regard, but we recognize that when you aren't able to attend campus, it may be difficult to gather the information and the resources that you need in order to be successful. So the kind people at MRU have put together a site called mru.ca/yougotthis, and it's intended for students In that website, you will find that we've compiled all of the academic tools, the essential academic tools, resources, and supports that you might need this coming fall, and we've put it all in one convenient place. And we hope that that will ease the process of transitioning back to the campus. I do want to reassure students that our planning continues in step with guidance from health authorities. So Mount Royal, of course, as it has been throughout the pandemic, will be compliant with provincial restrictions, and we will ensure that we are doing whatever we can to improve the student experience, while also being very mindful, of course, in prioritizing your health and well-being. Sometimes, particularly in the context that we're currently living in, it's difficult to imagine what a fall might look like with the current restrictions that are in place. So please know that our plans for the fall are largely based on a removal of significant restrictions that you currently need to abide by. So we anticipate that there will be reduced or eliminated social distancing requirements, and that students will be able to attend the campus in a manner that is conducive to learning in person. We are constantly updating information related to our pandemic response at mru.ca/COVID-19. That's a great place to get up-to-date information. Whenever there are changes to our processes or our practices as a result of changes to restrictions, we make sure that we update information at that website. I also want to point out that if there are students who need a medical exemption moving into the fall term, and this is a documented medical exception, please contact Access and Inclusion Services. The website again is provided here at mru.ca/access and inclusion, and an accessibility advisor will be able to work with you to determine the best path forward. We're doing a lot. We have been doing a lot throughout the pandemic, and certainly continue to do so. And we are preparing for your return in the fall term. Right now, we are attempting, as you know, to manage the timetable to reduce some congestion on campus, and to appropriately manage the number and flow of people that might be in the hallways or around the campus at any given point in time. I am on campus today. Our grounds crew should be applauded for all of the work that they continue to do to make this university look amazing, and it still does. It is a wonderful place to be in the summer and the fall, with the trees and all of our features. I've also noted that there are signs throughout the campus that are being added and in place already to indicate our traffic flow, to update occupancy limits, whether that's in elevators or washrooms, and to remind people of their personal health responsibilities when they are in our public spaces. We've also reconfigured spaces across the campus. In some cases, we've removed some non-essential shared furnishing to be able to promote social distancing. There has been plexiglass installed at some service locations, and we are doing our best to increase the use of outdoor spaces. I recognize that there's some people who've been MRU student for some time who have never been on the campus, and again, kind of points to why we're so excited for your return in the fall. But this university has an extraordinary number of wonderful outdoor spaces that you can take advantage of. And of course, as was noted at the beginning of this presentation, we are continuing some online learning with the intention of increasing options for students to ensure that you were able to complete your course requirements. You'll find hand sanitizer at all entrances and in high traffic areas across the institution. Our facility staff has been doing and will be doing additional cleaning of high touch surfaces in all of our common areas across the institution. You will find some things like water fountains where we know they're high touch or shared use. that they may be out of service moving into the fall. And again, this will be compliant with provincial health restrictions, but we do our best to try and reduce the risk of spreading germs and keeping people safe. Again, the facility staff is maximizing fresh airflow in our ventilation systems, and our ITS staff, Information and Technology Services, has been working to increase Wi-Fi signals in outdoor spaces, once again, so that people can take advantage of the campus surroundings. When we return to the fall, we will be asking employees and students who have COVID-19 symptoms to stay at home. That should not be surprising. Once again, we hope to see limited spread of COVID across the campus, as we've really seen throughout the pandemic, but we certainly want that to continue through to the fall term. The best way to prevent the spread of infection of COVID-19 is to get yourself vaccinated. So if you haven't been vaccinated yet and are eligible, please do so, and continue to monitor the provincial health and safety requirements, as well as the institutional requirements that will update on the COVID-19 website. And I would just ask as well, that students try and exercise a little bit of patience with the institution. We are all excited to come back to the campus. We are an institution that has prided itself on a personalized learning experience, and that is really, really student-centered. And none of that has changed throughout the pandemic. But many of our campus members have been away from the institution for close to 16 months. And there will be some transitional challenges, undoubtedly, that we face as we move back into the fall. The resiliency of this community has demonstrated to me that we will have no problems whatsoever in addressing those challenges, but we ask that you are a bit patient as we go through that process. And at this point in time, I believe I will be opening the floor to some common questions.
Thank you, Phil. That was really good information. Thanks for sharing that. So now we do have a number of questions from students. And so like I mentioned before, we're going to get through as many of these as we can, but we're going to group together questions as well, because a lot of you have similar questions. So it's going to be quicker for us to group those together. So Phil, I'm just going to start firing these at you if you're ready. Our first question, which was asked by a number of students. There is a short period of time between when I have an in-person class and an online class. I can't get home in time to do the online class. Is there a place that students can go on campus?
Yes, we are anticipating, of course, that students may have a mixture of online and in-person learning, given that 20% of the schedule is intended to be delivered online. And we recognize as well that with transportation, it may be hard to move from one place to another with a limited amount of time in between your classes. So the institution is accommodating students through a number of existing spaces to be able to engage in online learning. That would include the Riddell Library and Learning Center, which is a fantastic 4-story learning facility at the institution that we are very proud of. But we are also looking at some additional spaces, such as Ross Glen Hall and the old library space. So on our main campus, in the main corridor, there is a large space that used to house the old library before the Riddell Library and Learning Center was constructed. While we are going to be engaging in renovation of that space over time, we are going to use the fall term to open that up to students to provide some additional locations to be able to engage in online learning while you're on the campus.
Thank you for that. Next question. If there are online courses that have a time and day correlated with them, Do you have to attend online at that time, or do the professors make that decision?
Great question. If there is a day and a time associated with the class, we are asking students to attend that day and time. In part of the scheduling process that we've engaged in, we recognize that changing a mode of delivery can be difficult for a student, and we wanted to minimize the impacts that this change might have on a student's schedule. So while the mode of delivery of the course may have changed from online to in-person or vice versa, the day and time of the course we've striven to keep the same, to again allow students to better coordinate with their co-curricular, extracurricular activities. In some courses, there will be asynchronous learning, which means that it is an online course that you will be able to engage in the content outside of that prescribed time. Those courses in the listing of courses that were provided to students in the email are indicated with a TBA indicator. So if you see a TBA around the date and time for a particular course that is being delivered online, that is a signal to you that that course will have asynchronous components that can be accessed at any other point in time. Every other course, please attend the day and time that's listed.
Great, thank you. Several students have asked this question. Will the university consider adding more online courses than those that are currently offered?
I think right now it is a possibility. We always make adjustments to the course schedule throughout the registration period leading up to the first day of class. And of course, there may be adjustments to the winter term schedule depending on what the fall looks like and what some of the student demands are. Again, this is why if a student wants to attend a section that is full, we ask students to engage in the waitlist mechanism that is available. That's an indicator for us that there is demand for a particular course or a particular mode of delivery. And where we can, we will make adjustments to be able to accommodate that. Our view is that it seems to be fairly common across the post-secondary system that institutions are landing on about this 80-20 split. And we feel that it is the right mix of modes of delivery to be able to accommodate students. But as always, we will adjust moving forward if that is absolutely necessary.
So Phil, I think you may have answered this question already, but I'm going to ask it again just to make sure because it's come up a couple of times. As a registered student, how can I switch my online courses to in-person?
So you can simply go into the registration system. There is a tutorial that is available to you. You can search sections for their availability, register in those courses, or waitlist yourself for those courses if the sections are unavailable. If you need support in doing that, if you're running into difficulties or you have special circumstances that you believe would require some assistance from the university, there is a Google form that is identified in the email that was sent to you on June 1st. We just ask that you go into the Google form, you indicate whether you are a student seeking online courses or in-person courses. You provide a reason through a drop-down menu for that desire, and we will do our best to get in contact with those students and to provide information to those students about how best to adjust their schedules.
Great. Related to this, so we have a question from an international student. Can I opt for online classes since I'm not sure of my arrival date and change those to in-person when I arrive in Canada?
So the simple answer to that question is yes, absolutely you can. The more complex answer is that as we get closer to the beginning of the fall term, courses become fuller and fuller, and so it is more difficult to make adjustments to your schedule. So my advice to international students who are currently experiencing travel restrictions and where it is unlikely that you will be able to attend in person in the fall is to register in online sections of a course. As an international student, you will likely know that the regulations around study permit processes through IRCC have been amended to allow international students to study online while still with or without a study permit, while still maintaining eligibility for postgraduate work permits. So there are many options available to our international students during this period of travel difficulty. My recommendation would be register in your online courses first. Of course, you can adjust moving forward, but the most important thing is that you are registered in those courses that will meet your graduation requirements. We absolutely want to make sure that students are able to get through their education in the prescribed period of time without any delays.
Thank you for that. So a couple of students have asked about student orientation. So if most of the courses will be delivered in person, will there be in-person student orientations?
So our orientation planning at the moment continues to be geared towards an online event. And the reason for that is that while we are fairly certain about where the province is headed with regard to social distancing requirements within the classroom, and within some of our public spaces moving into the fall, we're a little less certain about what is going to occur with small to medium to large size events. That said, while we recognize orientation is incredibly important and it takes a long time to plan appropriately so that students get the information they need, while we will be retaining a significant components of our orientation online, the orientation team, the new student orientation team, is currently working on plans to add in-person events to give opportunities for students to better get to know one another should the circumstances allow for that in the fall term. And we believe it likely will, so that is why we're planning accordingly.
So I wanted to ask one more question from an international student here and sort of on this same thread before we switch gears a little bit. So this question is, my visa application is in process. If there is a delay in me receiving it, can I defer my intake from fall to winter?
That's a fairly specific question, and it is going to depend in part on some individual circumstances. So what I would recommend for international students that are in this position are to, if you have an offer, continue trying to pursue the study permit. Universities Canada has been working closely with the federal government and with IRCC to improve the study permit process and to try and bring down the processing times. It is our sincere hope that students who have applied for a study permit prior to, I believe it was March 15th, will be guaranteed to have an answer before the fall term begins. I would also register in online courses and reach out to admissions. And the admissions team, our international admissions team, will be able to provide some specific advice about the possibility of deferral if that's absolutely required.
So switching gears a little bit, This is related to the recreation and athletics fee. Can you answer for us, why do students have to pay the recreation and athletic fee if the recreation center has been closed?
This is a fairly common question, and for our new students, you may not be aware of this, continuing students likely are, that we have tried throughout this pandemic to keep the recreation center open, primarily to our students first, followed by our staff and faculty, followed by public members throughout this pandemic. It seems that every time we put into place a reopening plan and reopen the facility, a short period of time afterwards, the facility is required to close down again as a result of health and well-being requirements. And then we go through the reopening and reclosing process again. As we build towards the fall, we believe strongly that the guidelines that will be in place will allow us to open the facility for full access to students. With regard to the fee itself, the fee for recreation and athletics has two significant components to it. One is recreation, which we get asked about a lot, and the other one is athletics, which we don't get asked about a lot. Our recreation and athletics fee, essentially, the revenues from that are split between our athletics and our recreation departments. For athletics, we continue to support varsity athletics throughout the pandemic, and we certainly hope moving into the fall that there will be increased opportunities for competitions for our Cougars teams. And I'll use this as a plug to just encourage students to support our Cougars moving into the fall of 21. We have a number of extraordinary teams and extraordinary athletes, and they would certainly benefit from your support. On the other half of the fee goes to recreation, and that fee is actually the revenues there are only going towards half of the costs of recreation. So it's really only intended to cover the student component. And from that, there are also requirements through that facility to be able to support academic programming, which we have been doing throughout the pandemic as well. So I guess the short answer to that question is we continue to collect the recreation and athletics fee because the revenues are still going towards supporting students that are either in athletics or students in academic programs who are benefiting from the facility. And certainly goes towards the development of programming that we have been engaged in throughout the pandemic, but simply have not hit a period of time where we've been able to offer it out to students for a prolonged period. So moving into the fall, I believe we'll be in a much better position, and students will be able to take advantage of that facility on a daily basis.
So we talked a little bit about vaccinations in your presentation, but as students have submitted a number of questions around vaccinations, I think it's important that we touch it one more time. So can you speak, Phil, to the question, will one or both of the vaccine doses be mandatory in order to participate in in-class learning?
Presently, we do not believe that the institution will make it a requirement for students to be vaccinated in order to participate in in-class or out-of-class learning. We do, however, strongly recommend that students receive both vaccines and contribute towards the immunity levels that we're trying to achieve in the province and across the country to get us back to a more normal state of operations. One thing that we will likely be doing, however, in residence, as we've been getting a number of questions about this, and the residence team is working on a process that will allow students to self-identify whether or not they have been fully vaccinated. and to request to room with other individuals who have also been fully vaccinated. So while we will not release personal information of students out to the general public or to any third party without explicit consent, we do want to provide a mechanism for our residents to be able to request rooming with other individuals who've been vaccinated. So, of course, we continue to monitor this in relation to provincial requirements and provincial actions. And as we have from the beginning of the development of the vaccine, we strongly encourage students to get vaccinated when they can.
So in terms of changing government restrictions and the evolving public health measures for the fall, will Mount Royal still be employing social distancing and masks? And we touched on that a little bit earlier, but let's reiterate that again, I think.
So I'll preface this by saying there are no guarantees in terms of how the fall term is going to play out. At this time, we believe that there will be limited social distancing requirements, particularly in the classroom, and that's why our planning processes have been built on the basis of assumptions of reduced or eliminated social distancing requirements. Masking is a little bit of a more open question. At this time, we are planning that masking will continue at least through the beginning part of the fall term and perhaps longer. And of course, we will look very closely at the health data that is released and at the both provincial and municipal guidelines that are in place for public sectors or public bodies when we roll around to the fall. So I don't think it's feasible based on, let's say, the restrictions that are in place today as of June 3rd. I don't think it would be feasible to consider a 80% to 100% return to in-person learning on our campus, but we do very optimistically and strongly believe that in the fall term, we'll be in a position that we will be able to transition to the in-person learning that we're planning for.
Thank you. I've got a multi-part question here, and I think that it's important that we address it at least, because I think that it's something that's on people's minds in terms of the possibility that we have to get shut down again in the fall, how all of the in-class students might be affected, how they might then keep up with their classes, would they switch then to online learning? Just if we could talk a little bit about that, if we had a repeat, I suppose, of what we experienced in the past.
Personally, I hope very much that we don't have a repeat of what we've seen in the past. But I will say that if we did have a worst case scenario that required the institution to implement social distancing requirements that would require us to go back into lockdowns, I feel more confident today than I ever have that Mount Royal would be able to fairly smoothly make that transition. It has huge impacts on students and student learning. I know that from my own children in K-12, who have certainly struggled with the transition back and forth from in-person to online learning and back again. And I certainly see it, with our students on campus who have been extraordinarily successful throughout the fall and winter terms, and now through the spring and summer, but who may prefer in-person learning and who I think are strongly missing the connections to the campus community. If there were requirements to back into a state that we are currently in. We are prepared for that eventuality. We have a Campus 21-22 planning team, and certainly our deans, our senior administrators, and management and staff from across the institution have been engaged in planning and would be ready to make that transition. And as always, in engaging in that process, we would ensure that we retain the student-centeredness that has been the hallmark of Mount Royal's approach to students for well over 100 years, but certainly exemplified more than ever over the last 16 months. We do whatever we could to ensure that students weren't disadvantaged and that they were able to complete their courses and complete their requirements. I think that is an unlikely scenario, but it is one that I think it is prudent to plan for, and we are prepared for that eventuality should it arise.
I think we've got time for one more question. So I'm just looking through the list here to try and make sure we give equal opportunity. This is an interesting one. Will there be quiet rooms for students who have to write online tests at school due to short breaks between an online class and an in-person class?
It's a very good question. So a lot of our space planning has been engaged in and designed around the principles of unique learning circumstances, and certainly the principle of kind of universal learning or universal design. So I do believe that there will be spaces that are adequate for students to be able to engage in that kind of quiet activity as well as group activity. We know that the campus needs a blend of those spaces. Some of those exist already within some of our facilities. I'll point again to the Riddell Library and Learning Center, but we will be engaging in that process in other spaces across our campus to ensure that there's a good mix of both public and private settings for students to be able to engage in their schoolwork and complete things.
That's great, Phil. Before we wrap up, do you have any closing thoughts before I give some housekeeping items?
I don't know. I've been talking a lot for 45 minutes. And I'm sure everybody is sick of hearing my voice. I do want to reiterate how thankful we are for our continuing students and their engagement in the Mount Royal experience throughout this pandemic. I am awed by the resiliency of our student body and the students' ability to be able to learn in adverse circumstances. Know that we miss you and miss seeing you in person, and we are very, very excited to have you back on campus again as soon as we're able to do that. So, and I'll just maybe do one more plug for support services across our campus, which have been available to students throughout the pandemic. As you engage in your registration processes, as you start to plan for the fall, as you return in the fall, please take advantage of the student services that are available to you across the campus. We're here to help you. We want you to succeed, and there are a great suite of offerings that will make your experience here better than you could possibly imagine it would be.
I second that. Thank you. So just some closing housekeeping. I really want to thank everyone who logged on, took some time to join us for the virtual student town hall. We really appreciated your participation on the live stream through the questions that you submitted. So if you missed any of the town hall, we'll be posting the recording of the live stream online at mru.ca/COVID-19. and look for the student section. That will be posted tomorrow. We'll also post this presentation at that same location so that you can view it as well. So if we didn't get to your questions during the town hall, take a look at the frequently asked questions section, also at mru.ca/COVID-19 in the student section. So right at the bottom of that page. So we update that page very regularly, and we'll go through any questions that we didn't answer today or couldn't get to today, and we'll answer them in that section. So keep watching that page all the time, because that's where all the current information resides. So if you think of a question that you didn't get a chance to ask, the form mru.ca/questions will be open for the rest of the day. So you can still submit questions even later on. So on behalf of Phil, I really want to thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a very good afternoon. Take care.